Only one thing that comes up in the people's mind: people are using drugs. People are using methamphetamine.
In January 2024, the Fiji police force seized more than 4 tons of methamphetamine bound for Australia, in what has been described as the biggest drug bust across the Pacific. Police discovered 797 plastic white containers in Nadi, a tourist hotspot on Fiji's main island, each containing white crystals. It is alleged that the drugs were transferred from a barge to a super yacht and hidden in 3 different locations before being seized in police raids. If sold in Australia, the drugs would have had an estimated street value of between 640 million and 1.2 billion Australian dollars. The Pacific Islands are known transit hubs for illicit shipments moving from Asia and the Americas to Australia and New Zealand.
Fiji, over the past several years, has emerged as a key transit country for methamphetamine trafficking across the Pacific. And there's plenty of evidence in terms of drug seizures in recent years that point to that trend. And a key city for the trafficking of methamphetamine in Fiji is Nadi, where is also an international airport. And Fiji has also become a preferred destination for organized criminal groups to stockpile drugs before they then gradually move the drugs onto Australia and New Zealand.
That's Virginia Comoli, head of Pacific Program at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. In 2025, she spent 3 months in Fiji talking to local people and researching the growing issue of methamphetamine in the country.
There's also a small-scale domestic production of methamphetamines within Fiji. The very first lab was discovered as early as in 2004. These, I cannot stress it enough, are just small-scale, clandestine labs, often called recook labs, because it's where crystal meth is mixed with other ingredients to basically dilute it and make it cheaper and therefore more affordable for local consumers. Fiji has indeed developed its own domestic consumption market, and this has been extremely detrimental to Fijian society because it's been linked to the ongoing HIV crisis, which results from the fact that people inject methamphetamines, they exchange syringes, and also exchange blood. Fiji now has the fastest growing HIV rate of the entire region.
We do outreach to our peers, giving out the information about HIV. And now, since the surge of HIV because of the drugs, we started to think and plan some of the strategy that we can, work together with other organizations, stakeholders, government, police, and faith-based, how to combat this issue.
That's Sasaniani Natal from Survival Advocacy Network in Fiji. She has been working with people who are affected by the spike in methamphetamine use in the country.
There's a lot of impact in the family, violence within the family. If the husband is taking methamphetamine, he's going to come and take all the items and sell it. The violence that happened, the crime committed, the accident happened on the road. Only one thing that comes up in the people's mind: people are using drugs. Nobody can stop. If somebody, individual using it and, they addicted to it, we can't say, stop this, stop that. Sometimes parents always call us to come and, do some counseling for their kids if they know their kids are taking drugs. Sometimes they said that sometimes they frighten when the kids come and threaten them and take their, electric appliance and other stuff and sell it for their drugs.
9 people were charged with offences relating to the seizure of the methamphetamine bound for Australia, which we mentioned earlier. And the judge said that sophisticated drug cartels were involved in the operation. Powerful foreign criminal groups exert significant influence over Fiji and the broader Pacific region, with reports indicating that they use the country as a base for their enterprises. Asian syndicates and more recently Latin American cartels, particularly from Colombia and Mexico, have also expanded their role in the Pacific drug trade with the help of local partners. And their presence in the country is increasing. Foreign actors score 6 out of 10 in Fiji, according to the Global Organized Crime Index, up from 5.5 in 2023 and 2021.
When there was the largest seizures of drugs in Fiji in January 2024, the investigation that had followed really uncovered how all these different actors worked together. So what had happened at the time is that there was a Chinese organized crime group that had collaborated with the Sinaloa cartel to facilitate the transshipment of meth from Latin America to Australia. In this particular instance of the cartel, the Sinaloa had deployed a spotter to Fiji. And this is consistent with the preferred modus operandi of cartels that don't have permanent presence in Pacific Islands, but they would just send some trusted operators on ad hoc basis to perform a particular function, in this case, a spotter. And so this spotter from the Mexican cartel had relied heavily on Chinese criminals who had direct ties to a local Fijian syndicates. And these local partners are able to coordinate on the ground logistics before then the cartels resume control of the drugs into the final destination, which in this case was going to be Australia. Australia and New Zealand have some of the highest per capita methamphetamine consumption levels in the world, and they pay some of the highest meth prices in the world. And therefore, it's very likely that criminals from the Americas, but also elsewhere, will continue to really do their best to reach those markets and get a share of the proceeds. And it's also really, if you think about it, very convenient for those foreign criminals to rely on local enablers so that they can, operate effectively, but at the same time maintain a degree of distance from the risk that comes from being on the front line. It is estimated that 70% of methamphetamine consumed within Australia now comes from production in the Americas. And actually that has surpassed the amount of meth that comes from Southeast Asia, which was traditionally the key source region. It's just much more convenient to produce abroad. In addition to that, of course, to produce methamphetamines, you need precursor chemicals, things such as ephedrines, pseudoephedrines, etc. And Australia has very tight controls in place when it comes to precursors, and therefore diverting those chemical precursors from the illicit market into the illicit one is going to be very difficult and very risky. Also, the other consideration on the mind of criminals is that there is less risk of law enforcement detection abroad. Because local production within Australia really exposes those criminals to detection from the police. There are also health and safety hazards. So, for instance, in the past, there have been explosions that happens in labs that are producing meth. So, of course, that would draw attention. In these collaborations, the foreign criminals would pay their local collaborators in kind. So let's say they're moving 20 kilos of meth, and they would say, well, but you can keep 5 for yourself within Fiji. And these kind of payments in kinds are what is believed to have kickstarted domestic consumption within some of these countries.
Survival Advocacy Network, it's the sex workers network, but we are the main groups that mostly use drugs. And we are the one that, can be lured easily, because we have foreigner client that comes in and bring drugs. A majority of those foreigner, they don't take meth. They just bring it because they benefit from it, the economic perspective of it.
But local production is also on the rise, with laboratories discovered in the Greater Suva area and Lautoka. This has fueled a surging domestic market, rising addiction rates, and increasing corruption and gang violence. The trade is wreaking havoc for many local people, communities, and families.
I've seen majority of my community are addicted to this methamphetamine. And it's sad when we look at them, they're so young. When you look at them, you feel sorry. But what we can do? They just follow their friends because they wanted it, or they were given, or they don't know they're taking it. Can be spike in their drinks.
The consequences are stark. In 2014, UNAIDS estimates that fewer than 500 people were living with HIV. But by 2024, that number had increased to approximately 5,900 people. That's a tenfold increase over the space of 1 decade. In her work, Sassanieli has been supporting sex workers who have been affected by methamphetamine use and the related growth in HIV cases.
If one is taking drugs, not only you will be affected, the whole nation will be affected. The police, the nurse, the taxi drivers, all those areas of work will be affected. If they come in, they want to have a referral in terms of medication, so we refer them. If they want to come in and want to know their status, so we refer them. Now we don't want them to wait anymore because of the surge of HIV right now. What we do now, we work with other organizations. We try and bring the service down to the community.
Another really important aspect is all the secondary impacts of addiction on communities. So we're talking about social cohesion being undermined. We're talking about individuals who are being ostracized. And we're also talking about an increase in the prevalence of petty crimes and also violent crimes, which have impact for the wider population. And obviously, things such as serious drug use has an impact on educational attainment and employability for people, which naturally has no long-term repercussions for individuals and I would say the country as a whole. In terms of impact, there is also the fact that drugs and drug proceeds have a clear corruptive power on institutions. But what is positive, I'd say, is that the seriousness of the drug challenge has now, galvanized action at the national level. For instance, Fiji introduced about 18 months ago or 2 years ago a new national counter-narcotics strategy, and indeed countering drugs has been recognized as a key government priority.
According to the Global Organized Crime Index, the synthetic drug trade had the largest year-on-year increase of any criminal market since 2021. And the illicit trade presents a serious challenge in Fiji.
I think it's time for the community, I mean the whole nation, because if somebody is taking drugs, like an example, myself, if I'm taking drug, it's not only me, my family will impact on this drug. It's the whole country. When we go out to the community, the only thing they ask for is the rehab center. So having a rehab center, you need money, you need people expert from, doing the work. Not only Fiji can solve this problem. I think Fiji don't have enough tools, enough people that expert in this field to come and to do the work. I think it's a collaboration between the other international country and Fiji to work together to solve this battle.
This is really also a regional issue also because the drugs transit across multiple countries. So within the Pacific Islands region, there are already in existence multiple mechanisms for information sharing, collaboration, intelligence sharing through regional institutions. And whereas these have been in place for some time, when we're talking about a number of years really, oftentimes they are not utilized to the full extent. So I would really encourage capitalizing on those existing channels within the region, but also, and that is less the case so far, I would encourage increasing collaboration and information sharing with partners outside of the region. I'm thinking primarily regions or countries where drugs are produced. So I'm talking about the Americas, I'm talking about Asian countries. I think some efforts have been made in terms of establishing a dialogue, but all in all, that seems to be very limited. So, for instance, in the case of Fiji's largest drug bust, which involved multiple foreign criminal groups, the only individuals that were brought to justice and stood trial and ended up in prison basically for the rest of their lives were Fijian nationals. We know that, by arresting lots of street level peddlers, that's not how you dismantle a criminal organization, because those guys will be replaced within 5 minutes.
Thank you to Virginia Comoli and Sassanieli Natal for joining me on this episode of The Index. If you'd like to learn more about the synthetic drug trade or methamphetamine in Fiji, head over to the Global Organized Crime Index, ocindex.net. And for more updates on organized crime trends around the world, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. I'm Thin Lewin. Thanks for watching.